Shabbat Shalom. Loss, disbelief, pain, anger, sadness, fear. I can only imagine these were some of the emotions felt by Abraham and Sarah as they began their journey after God told them to go forth to your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. This week's Torah portion, Lech Lecha, presents us with a wide array of emotions that range from drama to tragedy and triumph. It's a detailing of change and of growth, of war and degradation, and where we encounter the first moment of circumcision and the genesis of our deep covenant between God and the Jewish people. In that moment of God's command to lech, to go forth, Ometz lev, inner strength, played a mighty critical role for our ancestors to adhere to a vision of not what is, but of what might be. An inner strength adhering to a God that says, I want you to be different, to start something new, a new faith and identity, not based on the contours of symbols of power, but one that asks them to teach their children and their household to do what is just and is right. Ometz is an incredibly core Jewish value, a spiritual and an ethical trait with which each of us is innately endowed as human beings. At key moments throughout our biblical journey, we witness many characters embody the quality of Ometz lev, of inner strength. In Genesis, Abraham audaciously confronts God on behalf of the innocent residents of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Hebrew midwives in the book of Exodus, Shifra and Puah, personify inner strength in defying Pharaoh's genocidal orders and safely deliver Hebrew babies into the world. In a famous midrash regarding the crossing of the Red Sea, Nachshon demonstrates Ometz lev by taking the lead among the Israelites and plunging into the sea, walking directly into the water until it reaches up to his nostrils. And in the Purim story, Queen Esther endangers herself by revealing to King Ahasuerus her true identity as a Jew. These past 3 weeks, I've reflected on how our Jewish ethno-religious identity time and again pushes back on national or religious symbols of power, challenging the prevailing consensus when other nations slip into worshiping their idols. For many, these idols are not just icons or statues. They serve as representations of power to help those who those who worship them. Ra became the symbol for the Egyptians. Zeus served for the role of the Greeks. And today, missiles, misinformation, and propaganda fulfill that function for rogue states and for terrorists. Since October 7th, I have come to better recognize how our Judaism has and continues to serve as a sustained and timeless opponent to such idol power. The Jewish narrative is built on the basis of our collective responsibility, the construction of a society that honors one as B'Tselem Elohim, in the image and in the likeness of God. Its formation and subsequent evolution rests upon a vision of a world that is foundationally based on justice and compassion. Abraham and Sarah, our first matriarch and patriarch, were regarded as Ivri, or crossers, commonly referred to the Hebrew origins of the Israelites. Yet the rabbis expand on its meaning, and they teach the following. They teach that all the world was on one side, Be'er Echad, and he, referring to Abraham, was on the other. Abraham and Sarah were our first Jewish models of challenging the idols of their time. Loss, disbelief, pain, anger, sadness, fear. These are the same emotions we share today in a world where many feel be'ever achad, on the other side. And as a Jewish community like our ancestors modeled in their time, in this unimaginable moment, Ometz lev, courage and inner strength is required at this moment by each and every one of us. Ometz lev, this inner strength, is how we face words like resistance and decolonizing on our news feeds, in social media posts and interactions on college campuses, and with those we know. Words that have come to justify and even celebrate Hamas's terror. Words that have been used to lift up their utter depravity and supplied as weaponized sound bites, blaming Israel for their own barbaric and inhumane attacks. Intellectual contortions and morally comfortable narratives that blame defenseless babies and children, young people at a music festival, or even aging Holocaust survivors. Our Ometz lev, our inner strength is needed as we painfully absorb the muted or impervious statements from so many we ordinarily look to in moments that require moral leadership. Heads of colleges and universities, school districts and social service organizations, those close to us who are silent, who choose not to speak up, who demonstrate or even acknowledge our individual and collective pain and loss, our basic humanity as Jews. And those who choose to circumvent the simple motive behind these heinous attacks, that the perpetrators were terrorists and their chosen victims were Jews. We are also meant to utilize Ometz lev, this inner strength, in its most radiant form. When our American Jewish community, often divided on all things Israel, feels the pain of our Israel family, both here and there, and has and continues to respond with such an outpouring of generous love and support. We see it when those protesting for nearly 40 weeks in Israel against the Israeli government transformed their movement into a network of social services for displaced families and for the wounded. When reservists who have refused to serve in protest of the government showed up in record numbers to serve and to volunteer. And it will take Ometz lev, it will take that inner strength for the many who are now on the front lines, fighting for Israel's survival, to save our homeland. Those who will soon directly face that evil in their midst, Hamas. That inner strength will be in high demand for those IDF soldiers as they follow their moral imperative in order to protect Israel's citizens, rescue its hostages, and begin a new chapter for the possibility of new life and leadership for the Palestinian people. Ometz lev draws us into knowing that history imposes on Jews the responsibility to confront the moral consequences of power, while being mindful of all humanity in the same exact moment. In knowing that this is a just and moral war, one we didn't choose, one we now cannot avoid, and one that reminds us that innocent Palestinians are also caught in the crossfire in this moment. Our Ometz lev will serve us when we double down on building bridges of understanding and creating more space for those courageous conversations. It will inspire us to assemble in our houses of worship, in our synagogues, to be together in community, to comfort and to console and to hold one another, to stand in support of our Israeli family who feel incredibly alone in the world, to demand a return of our hostages, for stressing the real-time need for humanitarian aid to keep on flowing into Gaza, for committing to checking in on our Israeli friends and family, both here and there, for always taking moments for self-care, and for finding joy in a world that we know feels shrouded in darkness. Cultivating Ometz Lev means applying our energy to protect and to stand up for those who are at risk, and that includes ourselves. We lean into our inner strength whenever we leave our comfort zone, whenever we take an unpopular stand, when we expose our vulnerabilities, when we speak the truth, when we confront others, we risk or embarrassment or personal loss, or intervene on behalf of those unable to do so for themselves. Ometz Lev. This is our individual and collective superpower. Our inner strength lies within each of us. So may it be in mind, body, and spirit, as we say, Amen.